welcome back. Once again, got another music retrospect, courtesy of your host Soli, and as suggested by his first-time guest, Mike Irizarry of What's on Your Mind?
How are you?
I'm not bad. How about yourself?
Well, we're sneaking through, Sully. It's a long day at work without a whole lot to do.
Shit.
One of those kind of days.
I
I get paid the same, so I guess I'd rather do less than do more.
Well, fair enough. As long as it clears.
Right.
As long as it doesn't become too much trouble, regardless of whatever raise. I was someone in a company car left clearly had a dog in the car because I noticed there was dog shit in the back of the seat, and I was like, well,
awesome.
I crisis averted. I reported it, so no one can blame me for the mess. But if it gets to where, regardless of the pay raise, where I get blamed for shit I didn't do, then we're gonna have a discussion. Probably a very, very patient 2-week notice. Oh man, it's amazing how some people are so atypical. Kind of like tonight's topic. Tonight's topic happens to be David Byrne's one and only Talking Heads.
All right.
And best known for being a mixture of melodic guitar pop, world beat explorations, art funk, and R&B type grooves.
Right. I'm pretty new to them overall. I can't say that I've got a super deep knowledge of the band. They're just kind of. I am a person of really strange and diverse musical tastes, and that's just where I've drifted now.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Stop Making Sense, the concert film, and it just always loved their various radio hits. My sister could never stand him. My dad went and saw one of their concerts. I want to say at like New Orleans about 3 years back. They still put on one hell of a show. I saw their newest Spike Lee documentary concert, and that was cool. But like you, I'm a very casual guy. I'm not just one of those like, oh, you didn't know this and that. It's like I know enough. But so according to All Music, which is what I use for pretty much every source on this show, I don't go to just Wikipedia or IMDb. Same thing with movies. I go to All Movie. So their drummer was Chris France. Their bassist was Tina Weymouth. And they were pretty big in the New York music scene in 1974, and then they won a spot following year in 1975, opening for the Ramones at the seminal New York punk club CBGB.
Mm-hmm.
And keyboardist Jerry Harrison of the Modern Lovers group was added to the lineup in 1976, and by 1977 they were signed to Sire Records and released their first album. And they mainly were beloved for the stripped down rock and roll aspect, as well as Byrne's geeky, over intellectual lyrics and uncomfortable, jerky vocals. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. They're just always just total party music, just very atypical. I welcome their bizarre, weird style, and they've been called all kinds of things, brilliant to pretentious, and I'm just like, yeah, that's just David Byrne and company in a nutshell.
Right, and I think it's most telling is that their music doesn't sound old. I mean, they've been around. The stuff's been around.
It really is that kind
almost
of special
years
abstract. Yeah,
like everybody decided to start sounding like them. The rumor is that even with the recent passing of Christine McVie, that even Fleetwood Mac's Rumors was driven on the fuel that Mick Fleetwood was upset that the Talking Heads had stolen some of their thunder. So I think it says so. They don't. They're not the first band that people pop into people's head when they're talking about seminal bands. They're not in that Beatles, Rolling Stones class, but maybe they should be.
And this is why I'm glad I invited you on, and I'm glad you picked the topic because it is kind of like any subjective art. It is fun seeing kind of the various rivalry and feuds and different how every band ages, and yet this is kind of like you say, an atypical, a counter-aging group, like, because kind of like alternative music, some of it from the 90s and 2000s still holds up to today because it's not easy to classify in any genre. And this is a kind of music, it was, again, already ahead of the curve. If they didn't do it, someone else was going to come up with something this bizarre and, outrageous. And I kind of, in my mind, just growing up, I always kind of got a Pink Floyd vibe. And now, before anyone shouts me off the stage, oh, they don't sound anything alike. I'm like, not saying that. I'm just saying they paint all this unusual imagery, which is just no one wants to talk about, and even using, documentaries and movies to kind of push their envelope and special brand of oddity, and
Right.
the same thing with David Bowie, it's like, he sounds great in every era, but he's different in every song and era. So, but these guys are so diverse that, like you say, it's just hard to pin down. But then when they finally show up on a music playlist, you're just like, okay, whoa, this just took a total turn, 180 in a good way.
It's I think the best artists, the best bands are the ones that you can't just fit into a category.
Yeah.
It's the one you're what is Ray Charles? Is he a blues guy or a rock guy? Is
exactly.
Guy? What's Bowie, for that matter? Is he hard rock? Is he modern
pop,
rock?
Yeah.
Pop? Is he, yeah, just so I think that's truly the airs that we're talking about here, and I think Talking Heads are certainly in that club.
And it happened organically. It wasn't, someone signed them on eventually just because they dug their rhythm. It wasn't because they had to ask to appeal to a certain audience. They were art school students, and then they went and put that into their music. Just,
right. They were good at what they did. God forbid.
Yeah, they went into the forbidden zone.
So somebody decided, hey, we should probably make a record with these guys.
All right, we love ourselves so much. We love what we do. Let's do it. And just like John Malkovich is all kinds of atypical acting, just like certain kinds of pizza are not what anyone expects for the mainstream crowd. Just like any other kind of thing that didn't have to invite itself to be part of the crowd. It's the same kind of deal here. They created this whole forbidden zone in their music, in their lyrics, and we just tagged along. We didn't ask to be invited either, but we dug what they did. They dug what they did, and it all matched together.
Right. It's
always so much fun, and altogether, I mean, I just have rarely seen anyone talk shit about him. I really haven't.
No, if you can't find something you like out of their catalog, then you haven't tried very hard.
Yeah, or you just don't like older music, or just you got
right. I don't know. There's plenty of people who claim to, I don't like older music, and then they accept for this or accept for that. It's usually just a blanket excuse for I haven't tried it yet, or I haven't found the one that I like yet.
To quote you too, I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Right.
U2 is kind of weird that way too. Where it's like 1 minute they're pop, and another minute they're kind of
Well, there you go. I mean, they're in that club. It's a band that's been around for 40 years. Not many of them can say that. Generational rock.
Yeah, I mean, I do see other people. It's kind of like with movies, when I recommend a movie. Oh, is it horror or action? I hate that shit.
Right.
And it's just like, nah. It just makes you wonder what kind they were exposed to. You're exposed to contemporary or modern,
or just a bad movie. drawing generalizations off a small sample.
Yeah, you had one shitty experience, and everyone would do that. Like, I would see pals who were like, I hate sci-fi or action, and they're watching Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park. So I'm like, what the fuck, guys? You like Star Wars and Jaws. That's pretty sci-fi-ish. My mother would always go, I don't like horror. I'm like, oh, but I like Poltergeist or X-Files. I'm like, well, who are you kidding here?
Maybe you don't like all of it, but
yeah, you don't like all of it. And I'm the same way. Everyone assumes because I like action, I must like Fast and Furious. I'm like, that's not it. Try again. But yeah, music, same deal. It's like I would see some of my uncles be like, oh, not really into rock. And I'm like, well, what kind of rock? There's U2, and then there's hard rock like Metallica or Disturbed. Or,
right.
I'm not getting deep here. I'm just classify, and
right,
it is what it is.
Right. We get too caught up on the labels and we forget to just like what we like.
Absolutely. And I do find them all pretty easier to get into. It's not like certain albums where you got to be in the right mood or probably watch it with someone who was introduced to it back in the day. It's not even like maybe Van Halen or the Beatles where they got, some acoustic versions or studio sessions in addition to their, special edition album. It's not meticulous, and it's not at the same time lacking in the detail. It's just more of it's a plentiful maze with plenty to do.
Right.
If I'm gonna keep doing all these over the top metaphors, like you can fight the Minotaur, or you can go play laser tag in this other maze. There's so many different tracks with so much going on in each one but at the same time, it doesn't really overwhelm you. It's a very organized over the topness, and that does say a lot because there's so many others where you do have to be in that exact mood. Like not everyone's going to want to say maybe listen to a satirical album by someone like Ben Folds, or a spoken word artist like Tom Waits, every night. It's just the crowd's going to vary regardless of the whatever we're in right now. So I mean, and I think, like you said before, they kind of just did enough of everything to where they didn't need to be like, again, they cheated the genre label, and then they cheated the whole where do you have to place us. It's like, well, there's something for everybody, much like Bowie. Like, I can play China Girl as well as Just Dance. Just tell me when and where.
Right.
And yeah, I've listened to some Byrne solo stuff and more recent stuff, and I think he just keeps trucking along just because he's just, much like they've organically found an audience, he's naturally earned his fandom.
Yeah, and he knows what his voice is, and it's really like that's a pattern that only he knows.
1,000%. And
right.
I've never encountered any stuck up fans. It seems like every other fandom has toxicity or shitheads. I've never encountered any music fans who were of Talking Heads who were just,
I mean, I'm sure they're out there. You never
oh,
want to.
Yeah, maybe if on a forum,
right,
let's say there's
pop up from under a rock and find you. But I think pretty much, it's kind of a product of the band itself. Like they didn't get caught up in being rock stars. They had work to do, right? Like if they're not in the studio, then they're
just
out.
Quoted Scooby-Doo. Got some work to do now.
Yeah. So I like, they didn't get caught in the trappings of it. You finish a gig, you get back on the bus, you go to the next gig. And despite the critical acclaim, I don't think they ever got out of that mentality.
Yeah, even when they did their solo projects and Harrison, Franz, and Weymouth's case, with their Tom Tom Club. Yeah, they and Now, someone more vigorously might have a backstage story. I have yet to see anything where there's like, I can't stand to be in the room with you, or
I haven't looked real hard for them, but me either.
I mean, either, because it just didn't invite itself. It was never like the Police, where you'd hear how Sting and company couldn't stand each other's ego. I never saw anything about like what and my father and I got teased respectively for liking certain eras of, say, the Doobie Brothers or Van Halen, just because some people are really picky about who's the wingman, who's the guy in charge.
Right.
It's just sometimes people, again, like you say, like to add fuel to the fire, or start a flame war and then refuse to put dirt on it and just pat it out.
Right. If the band is full of dramatic types, then the fans are going to be dramatic types. If you have a Van Halen situation where everybody starts picking sides with one another, well, that's what the fans are going to do too. And if you keep all that stuff out of the papers, then they're not. They're just going to go out and enjoy you, wherever you go and whatever you find. So it's you brought up the Police, and they're kind of in between in that I think those guys are okay with one another. They just know that they can't really get together and work long term with one another. Like, and that's okay. That's just being mature about it, right? You're not going to be just absolutely in sync with everybody you work with, but if you can work with them occasionally and for short periods, well, great, go ahead and do that, because you still like them as people.
Yeah,
and I think that seems to be the vibe I catch from them as we stand in 2022. I know it was not always the case.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you picked this topic. You gave me a whole list. I always like to have it around not the judge. I almost said judge, the guest, and I was like, this was a very easy topic to just kind of lean into, just kind of just go with the flow. And I feel like that's kind of where they are, is just go with the flow.
Right. But what else do you have?
Altogether, that's essentially it. I just
I thought you had questions,
but I'm for real. I'd rank them in my top 100 somewhere. Where would you rank them on yours? Would they be in your top 10 or top 20?
It's
twisting a question with a question.
Right. That's a tough list to put together. The safe call is probably 20. Just because.
Okay, so even better, because we did some other artists, and I was like, I like them, but I don't know if I'd make them in my top 20, because that means they're my personal playlist, once a month or something.
Right.
Probably the top 100.
And truthfully, it's for me, I'm kind of all over the place as far as popular music goes. That's not an insult. That's just one of those.
No.
There's a lot of bands out there that I really like a half dozen songs for, or 10 songs for, and then I'm kind of lukewarm on the rest of the catalog. And they're certainly past that point to where like I'm buying albums and things like that, which is tough for me to do in an age of iTunes and just clicking the things you like and and getting the songs you like and leaving the ones you don't behind. So yeah, the Talking Heads are certainly in that I'm buying albums class. That's just
you're going to see their next few remasters, but yeah,
right.
like you mean,
right.
That's not the case with every band. Some are just like casual listen, or bought 2 of their CDs. I'm not going to buy all 10 or 20.
Right. Or there's a couple of tracks here and a couple of tracks there, and it's one that through the years that I've kept up with, because there's always one song on every album that I love. Blues Traveler is that.
Oh,
they had their heyday in the 90s, but and since then it's a little samey. They're still out there. They're still doing new stuff. But those albums are it's like, if you've heard one, you've kind of heard them all, but there's always one song that's really good. Every album, there's one song that really kicks ass. So they're worth keeping track of for that, but that's really not a top 20 kind of band, right?
Yeah, but you're about like the fifth podcaster who suggested them, so they've left their mark. But like you say, they might not, because they're often kind of like Yes, where they got a lot of songs that are just like 6 to 12 minutes long. They aren't as exposed. They're not all ready to air on the radio waves, because of the 4 minute limit for those who don't know or don't listen to radio. But and then at the same time, some of it kind of blends into one over the other. So then it's just a matter of like, yeah, well, that tune got me grooving. The rest was kind of repetitive, despite, and there's no denying their talent. So yeah, that's where it gets a little trivial, I guess you could say. But like you say, we saw, they came and did and are still, again, doing concerts, doing side projects, doing remixes, doing remasters, and it's pretty all well. It's like you say, it's with merit. It's pretty well earned, and it's not really nothing tacky or tricky to it.
No, I think for their 25th anniversary a few years ago, they did Blues Traveler did an album of Blues Traveler covers.
Oh, nice.
Which was just songs that you're out on the road for months out of the year, and you find different ways to do your own songs to keep from going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So they picked out some of those that they liked and did them in a studio. So I thought that was a neat idea. I thought that was a different wrinkle. But while we're thinking about it,
that is a good point, because you gotta love yourself. You can't do this on autopilot. And that's where most people throw in the towel. They're like, this is too much trouble. I hate concerts, or I like concerts, but I hate recording, or I just don't like the whole process, even though I love what I do. I'm a millionaire.
right, or the Billy Joel principle.
Yeah. Well, who knows? There might be a behind the scenes kind of story where it's like, hey, we've tried it this way. We got to do it all different now. And they probably, I think they took enough of a breather to where they just kind of they know how to sync it out. They like the whole craft of it all, as opposed to, I mentioned the Police earlier. The Police infamously reunited in 2007, and many fans were distraught in that instance, for example, because Stuart Copeland and the Sting and company fucking hate each other. So it's like, when it gets to that point where you can't stand to be in the same room, your manager is stuck up, or the producer has had it up to here with all your bullshit and just wants to get something in the can, you just gotta.
I think in 2007 people were still reacting to how those guys felt about one another in 1985. and not how they felt about one another in 2007.
That's true too. The internet.
They were older. They calmed down. They knew they could put it together and do some work together. But it was a finite project. It had an end.
It had an end. Maybe if it wasn't in sight, but they had an end.
They were mature enough and comfortable enough to be able to put that down when they were done with it. So that's what they did.
Exactly. And I mean, you gotta call it quits after a while.
Yeah, nothing lasts forever. It's crazy. We were talking about U2 a few minutes ago. They've 40 odd years of those guys, and they've been best friends since before anybody knew who they were, and that just blows my mind. Like I'm in my 40s. I've had, a couple of friends left since high school who I communicate with regularly, and a few others who I talk to semi-regularly, and that makes me really weird. Right.
Right. Here we are years later, we're still talking to each other, but yeah, no, I mean, it is funny how you do that with certain friends over time. You're like, I haven't kept up with them, or I like them, but in small doses, or, only meet up once a year.
You get to doing different things, and you become different people, and you'll always have that common ground that you both sprung out of.
Yeah. But it might even take you 20 years to realize, wow, what an invaluable friendship we have. Right. I never knew how good I had it or how special this person was. But yeah, then it gets to all other sorts of factors. And in the 2000s, when we were to your earlier point, finding out what, how can, getting too close to our heroes. And it's like, yeah, not everyone had reprinted, other than like maybe on GeoCities, certain, fan mail or promos or news articles about what we grew up liking. We didn't know if fandom came in different levels than it did, through, and forums were still in beginning stages. I still find occasional ones that are like, wow, I wish forums were like that now, as opposed to now where everyone's, sharing spam, tagging each other, or just
even forums are too slow, right?
Yeah.
Like forums have gone on the way to the dodo. I was an admin on some GI Joe sites and forums.
Were you really?
Oh yeah, and we're talking 2003, 2004. Like, so yeah, like by the time 2008, 2009 are rolling around, I mean, Facebook was already ruining them. So
yeah, and then we revisit some of these old sites, and the admins can like only be reached by like an out of date email. They moved on with their lives, and
right.
I reach out to casual movie reviewers who I grew up loving, and some of them were the nicest people who just got with the times and moved to a different blog and relocated all the stuff into their cloud up there. And others are like, hey man, thanks for the fan mail, 30 years too late, but I moved on. I'm just gonna pass. And then there's other times where it's like, whoa.
Right.
But it is funny. Yeah, just different stages, different evolution, different acknowledgement.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to love something to do it for little compensation for that long of a time. So I don't begrudge the webmasters of America for getting out of that game when there were other utilities out there willing to do that job for free and take a lot less of your time. It's much easier to be a mod in a Facebook group than it is to on a PHP board. So.
It really is wild how Facebook has evolved.
And I'm not saying it's a great thing. I'm not here to tout the pleasures of Facebook by any means, but
we were not paid to stroke Facebook's ego. We swear.
From the standpoint of somebody who worked as an admin, oh yeah, no, I was not upset when our forums slowly got emptied out by the oncoming onslaught of social media.
Yeah, there's even some groups I have run since like maybe 2015, 2017, and just now they're getting some traffic because fandom comes in different levels. People like stuff, but they don't post about it. Now people are going back to stuff. We've had a lot of retro stuff and I think we're just at a standstill. People are now realizing you have options. It's okay to, still one's audience 1 minute, let alone factor it all in. People are now doing the whole I'm quitting Twitter versus I'm quitting Instagram deal. Just like people prefer streaming versus getting a Blu-ray copy. It's just versus DVD versus just cable TV airings. It's just people have tried to outpredict stuff, and then it just got to where you can't predict it. You just got to go with the flow and have fun.
Right. You got to ride it out and see where it goes.
Yeah. You just got to ride that tide and then just say there is no tide. Just have fun.
Right. We've been doing What's on Joe Mind now it'll be 12 years in April.
Oh, really?
And I mean,
that's right. You did post that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We started out in 2011. I wasn't even part of the original cast.
You might as well be, since kind of like the Daily Show, you came in and people associate you as one of the mascots.
Right. I showed up on episode 3, and I was the guest host. Like I would show up sporadically that first few months.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
And then one of the original hosts left, and I stepped in and took the spot then. But it started out, we were far more popular at the beginning of the run because podcasting was new. Nobody did it.
Yeah, it started off as far as 06. There's even some podcasts where you can't even play their episodes from 2016 to 2019 for whatever reason. It just has a bad playback. You just got to remaster and re-upload it. I don't know about your show, but
there's a few that have rotted in the Podbean vault, but for the most part, they're all still there. But we were podcasting was new and not many people were listening, but we were also the only one that did GI Joe stuff. So if you
were before knowing is half the podcast.
yeah. So if you were listening to GI Joe if you were looking for a GI Joe podcast to listen to, we were kind of the only one. So if you go back to those early episodes, there's some of them, there's 50 and 60,000 downloads, and it's kind of mind blowing because we probably put more work into it now for the 2,000 combined viewings we might get between Facebook, YouTube, and then still with the audio runs. Like it's just like if we're lucky if we break that 2,000 mark on any particular episode. So it's certainly a much more fragmented.
If you're not first, you're last. And then sometimes you don't know where you are, but you're somewhere in the algorithm.
Right. It's weird in that we've spawned so many spin-offs and imitators that most everybody's heard of us because chances are the person that started the show you actually listened to started listening to us. It's a really weird position to be in.
It's like you earned the bragging rights, but you're not here to brag. You just did your job, which was be the essential connoisseur of G.I. Joe.
We're glad we have a following. Like I don't think we would do this if nobody listened.
Right.
But like we're
if
not
only your cousin or parents gave notes.
Right. That turns into home movies and nobody's really interested.
Yeah. But sometimes you can't worry about that. Sometimes you got to be like, I had Will Johnson on. He's of the Down Below a Babylon 5 podcast. And he just joked how it was like he got traffic even more like the third year in. He'd already done the show like 3 years prior to that, gone through the whole run. It's like, fandom comes in levels. It's almost like people buy a box set, but they don't access the special features until like, a decade later.
Right. And, we got to the point where we felt like we were probably a little late making the switch when we started doing video. But we just started doing that in maybe 3 years ago now. I'd have to go back and check the date stamps on that. But because, I mean, if you have the ability to, I mean, let's face it, we're talking about toys and comic books and cartoons. If you can show pictures, that's probably to your benefit. So once we figured out a way to do that without having to spend hours and hours and hours and hours of editing, we decided to make that jump. And that's just taking it in a whole different direction. Like we have some of the folks that were diehard loyalists to the audio show. And they were very upset that we started doing a video show simply because we weren't catering it just to that. We still make it available as an audio podcast.
Those guys sound like gatekeepers.
Right. It's like, come on, guys. I mean, either that's what we're doing to try and keep this thing growing and keep this thing at least profitable enough to keep itself going. Like again, we're not in this to make money, but it's nice to be able to make enough money to cover our expenses.
Bingo, especially for the inevitable, let's say there's a Blu-ray release of the entire show.
I don't see that.
Patreon for that would be very nice.
But Podbean has its monthly charges and there's
300 a year.
There's other maintenance costs
plus and film equipment updates and inevitable blunders in the road, for when your car breaks down.
The professional StreamYard software is a cost, and so we're lucky enough to have a few patrons and enough ad revenue.
Let's say there's a guest that has a $400 hourly session that is going to add up. I'm not saying go that far, but
we usually don't go with those.
That's good. That's a good idea. But
we're not a big enough show for that to happen. But truthfully, it's we've never really we haven't encountered that a whole lot. We've done interviews in the past. We haven't so much since we've been to video. Mostly who we talk to are folks who are doing independent projects and things like that.
That's good.
But we have a pretty deep library of talking to voice actors and animators and writers and
A lot of them are on social media. It is really surprising. And
not a single one of them ever asked for a dime. So,
right.
Maybe it's because we're talking about G.I. Joe, and that's not where big money is in pop culture right now, but whatever. What can you do?
Well, so that's awesome. So I will have to invite you on for an exclusive G.I. Joe movie sit down.
Movie sit down. That'll be tough.
Right.
That'll be.
It'll pretty much be fuckity fuck.
Yeah.
That's how but we can talk about the animated movie as well.
Oh, well, that's still, I have my issues there too, but anyways,
yeah, that's fine. And
I will say this, I will take any G.I. Joe movie over any Transformers movie.
That is also fair. That is sound. That checks out.
Yeah.
But either way, man, this has been a delight because this is exactly the kind of pleasant sit down we were going for, in that this is a straightforward chat.
A meander through the garden.
Yeah, we meandered for about 10 minutes on your deal, but that's fine. It's just, it's already taken its course, and we've already, much like what you discuss on a daily basis, or let's just say monthly, more realistically, it resonates with you. And this band, the Talking Heads, kind of just resonated with us just because very few disagreeable factors. Like, it's just, even if you're easily nitpicky or stuck up about certain things, it's just like someone who is just very vague probably won't like this. And it's also, I have yet to encounter again any Talking Head fan who is just, I don't know, pulls a pretentious filmmaker equivalent of, you just don't get it. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who's just like, it seems like they're pretty chill. David Byrne's pretty chill. It's all just a natural rhythm.
Right.
They talk
with their heads.
Yes, with their heads. I love it. That's a good place to stop. So, Mr. Irizarry, where can we find you on social media?
Well, the easiest places to find me are through the What's on Joe Mind channels. We are on YouTube. You can search us, WOJM.
Don't send him OnlyFans links.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't. It's up to me to click on them, and I just won't. But
that sounds like a disclaimer.
Right.
I'm not saying I won't not.
WOJM, What's on Joe Mind on YouTube. We are live every Friday night at 9, or most Fridays at 9 Eastern. It is me. It is the honcho Mark Weber, who is the former head of marketing for the G.I. Joe brand at Hasbro.
Oh, nice.
And Joe Colton, who is the queen of G.I. Joe cosplay. And my brother Rob serves as our comic book expert, because that's, oh my God, that's his thing. He's forgotten more about comic books than I've ever known. He's honest to God, he's an encyclopedia. Like, it's one of those where, yeah, maybe we could go get a more documented expert, but we know we got our guy.
Someone who's seen every episode a dozen times. But again, it's just, you like having all those different voices in the room and the different perspectives, because I don't know, people seem to think there's this dilemma of you either don't know it at all or know it all, and it's like you can be an in-betweener. Is like, hey, I know about the producers and animators, I don't know about the voice actors. It's just, there's so many different perspectives to what so
right. And we are there usually in some combination of the four of us. It's fairly rare that you catch all four of us on the same episode, but it did happen. Happened last week, knock on wood. We are also on Facebook. Again, same name, WOJM, What's on Joe Mind. We are at WOJM Podcast on Twitter. We are at What's on Joe Mind on Instagram. We are at What's on Joe Mind on TikTok. So yeah, some permutation of either the initials or What's on Joe Mind will bring you to us. So that's the best plug I can give.
I congratulate you.
Thank you so much for having us, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm just glad we could schedule this on short notice and just take it off. Easiest NASA launch ever.
We'll return after these messages.
Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. Join us every Tuesday as we discuss movies, TV, games, and even music, new and old.
Dude, what do you think you're doing?
Are you seriously trying to record a promo without us right now?
Well, yeah?
Dude, you can't just do the promo by yourself. Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah, and you probably haven't even told them that we're a pop culture podcast where we always agree on everything. For instance, the Sam Raimi trilogy, easily being the best of the Spider-Man movies.
No. But I think we can all agree that Jaws is a classical masterpiece.
Nope, don't like that. But we do all agree that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is the best in the Skywalker saga, right, guys?
That comment is so ridiculous. I don't even know where to
Anyways, that'll do it from all of us here at Culture Shock. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the U.S. We are in the U.K. We are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up